Y'all, I already need to pee, but it's fine. It's fine. It's gonna be fine. Why is it gonna be fine? Because it's gonna be fine. Because I'm not gonna die. It's gonna be fine. Ha bit of coffee. Ha bit of coffee. It's gonna be fine. Ha bit of coffee. Cool. It's funny, if anybody actually watches these lives, they're gonna see me acting like this. Hi YouTube. Sorry, I'm insane. Okay. Yeah, this is fine, right? Right, it is fine. Yeah, cool. Just checking. All right. Oh yeah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم 3 2 Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another episode of Quran in English. My name is Ahmed and I'm happy to take you through the next section, starting with a new chapter, Surat Al-Ahzab, the chapter of the combined forces. Like I was saying at the end of the chapter, like how do I describe Ahzab? Yeah, it is talking about war. Ironically, we're talking about war here on this festive March. Oh shit, I just realized it's March. How's it March already? On this 1st of March, where in this modern timeline, it's the second time that the U.S. has struck Iran. The United States of America have struck Iran, and now Iran's retaliating and striking all the bases worldwide. It's actually very, very terrifying, and I'm very scared for my loved ones. So ironically, we're about to open a chapter of war. Ironically, or perfectly apt, or perfectly suited, so it's kind of interesting. But before I get into it, I must explain what am I doing here. I'm here to learn about the Quran, practice reading Arabic, the Quran, and say what I understand, because I feel like that's the best way for me to learn. If you would like to join me on this education journey, you're welcome. If not, okay. Anyway, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها النبي اتق الله ولا تطع الكافرين والمنافقين إن الله كان عليما حكيما. Oh, Prophet. Now this is explicit. Normally they put it between the carets, meaning that it is always implied, but now it's being very clear and very specific. This is talking to the Prophet, and the Prophet Muhammad was the last prophet, as the Quran says so. Therefore, this is specifically talking about the past. O Prophet, be mindful of God and do not obey the disbelievers and the munafiqeen, the hypocrites, the ones who say that they believe but they don't really believe. Indeed, God is all-knowing and all-wise. وَاتَّبِعْ مَا يُوحَى إِلَيْكَ مِنْ رَبِّكَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرًا. And follow what is inspired to you from your Lord. Inspired is like revealed is another word for it. Like the Quran was, through this verb, al-wahi, was conveyed to the Prophet Muhammad. But he was also guided through other themes. But like when he said what is revealed to you, we understand it to be the Quran, but there was also other guidance beyond the Quran. And follow what has been inspired to you from your Lord. Indeed, God was about what you do all aware. وَتَوَكَّلَ عَلَى اللَّهِ وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ وَكِيلًا. And put your trust in God, and sufficient is God as a person who you put trust, as a trustee of affairs. Feels very formal, but it's all about trust. It's more than just trust. It's like putting your trust and like just depending on God. Yeah, it's definitely trust, but it's just like it's a bit more than just trusting. You know what I mean? Okay, and then it enters something that is beyond me, inheritance I do not have the life experience to understand the inheritance verses in the Quran, but I'm going to give it my best go anyway. ما جعل الله لرجل من قلبين في جوفه وما جعل أزواجكم اللائي تظاهرون منهن أمهاتكم وما جعل أدعياءكم أبناءكم ذلكم قولكم بأفواهكم والله يقول الحق وهو يهدي السبيل. Yeah, I mean, God did not make for any man two hearts in his chest. Yeah. In his interior is the literal translation, chest is what's understood. And he is not made for your wives for whom you declare unlawful from them as your mothers. So this confused the heck out of me. So this is a divorce called zihar, that's the word that's being used, tadahirun, zihar, was commonly practiced in Arabia before the Prophet. If a man declared his wife as unlawful from him as the zahr, the back of his mother, his wife would be divorced. Islam abolished this type of divorce. Again, above my pay grade in terms of understanding what the reference is, the historical significance. Then it says, and he's not made for your adopted sons as your sons. Your adopted children are not your real children. The following distinction should be made. Sponsorship, which is made permissible. A person can sponsor a child or host them in their home and take care of them as they care for their own children, except for legal matters. For example, adopted children keep their own last names, not the last names of the household, are allowed to marry the children of their adopted parents. Adopted and biological children of the opposite sex should dress modestly in front of each other and do not have a share in the estate of their adopted parents, but can get a share of inheritance up to 1/3 of the estate through the bequest, wasiyah. Adoption, a person is not allowed to take an orphan and give them his or her last name, give them a share of inheritance similar to their own children. Lots of concepts and topics that are above my head. From what I understand, adopted children can be taken care of, but they don't have legal rights. And we get into it a little bit more, but I don't understand why or what we're talking about. This is just my life experience is very limited in this regard. ذَلِكُمْ قَوْلُكُمْ بِأَفْوَاهِكُمْ, that is what you say with your mouths. So all these things that you said, that adopted children are your own, or that women are, like the backs of our mothers. This is what you say with your mouths, but this is not what God says. But God says the truth, and He's the one that guides to the right way. This is one of the many examples of the Quran tries to establish order in a world that can be a bit chaotic. ندعوهم لآبائهم هو أقسط عند الله فإن لم تعلموا آباءهم فإخوانكم في الدين ومواليكم وليس عليكم جناح فيما أخطأتم به ولكن ما تعمدت قلوبكم وكان الله غفورا رحيما. Call them by their fathers. Here, ادعوهم لآبائهم. So the way that I read it in Arabic, call them to their fathers, but here they're saying let them keep their family names. I think this is talking about the family names. Maybe I'm again misunderstanding this completely. ادعوهم لآبائهم. It sounds like call them to their father, who is more just towards God. That is more هو أقسط. Yeah, that is more just towards God. But call them to their fathers. It would make sense that we're talking about last names. Call them to their father's last name, especially after the footnote from the previous verse. But it's not exactly what I understood myself. Because then it says, and then if you don't know their fathers, then your brothers in religion or your friends. So like here they're saying, instead of calling them by their father's names, then they are your brothers in religion or your associates, which I feel like we're missing something. We're missing the point. Call them to their fathers, and if you don't know their fathers, then I would imagine it's call them to your brothers and your friends, your allies. Why wouldn't it still be the same verb that extends? because call them is what was being said. And if you don't know their fathers, which is call them by your fathers. If you don't know their fathers, then they're brothers, or your brothers in religion, or your friends. So call them is the verb that is being carried over. Right? I'm a little bit confused, as you can clearly see. I don't fully understand this. وَلَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ جُنَاحٌ فِيمَا أَخْطَأْتُمْ. Oh, I've read this, right? وَلَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ جُنَاحٌ فِيمَا أَخْطَأْتُمْ بِهِ وَلَكِنَّ مَا تَعَمَّدَتْ قُلُوبُكُمْ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا. Can't remember if I read it or not. Did I read this? Anyway. And it is no sin for you. It is not upon you a sin, any blame, if you make a mistake in it, but what you intended your hearts. So there's no blame for you make a mistake, but there's only what you do intentionally, and yeah. And God was oft forgiving and most merciful. Again, all this inheritance and names, I don't understand these verses. And like I said, I don't have to understand everything in the Quran the first read through, so yeah, let's give it another go. النبي أولى بالمؤمنين من أنفسهم وأزواجه أمهاتهم وأولو الأرحام بعضهم أولى ببعض في كتاب الله من المؤمنين والمهاجرين إلا أن تفعلوا إلى أوليائكم معروفا كان ذلك في الكتاب مسطورا. The prophet, again, it's specifically using the term prophet. Usually it calls him the messenger. So that's why I say I feel like when it's talking about the messenger, it can be a bit more broad. Where it's talking about the prophet, it's specifically talking about the prophet himself, because there is no more prophets after the Prophet Muhammad. The prophet is closer to the believers than their own selves, and his wives are their mothers. And it says, and the possessors of relationships, arham comes from the word womb. So, womb relatives. So here they've translated to blood relatives because that's a more common phrase and expression. But here it's saying that people who you are related to. وَأُولُو الْأَرْحَامِ بَعْضُهُمْ أُولَى بِبَعْضٍ فِي الْكِتَابِ. And the possessors of the womb relationships, some of them are closer than some of them in the decree of God than the believers and the immigrants. Except that you do to your friends a favor. Yeah, so your blood relatives are more entitled to inheritance than the believer. It's not just inheritance. I think it's missing the point. I think it's more than just inheritance. It's like who you take care of, who you support. You know? Your blood relatives are more entitled to support, except if you want to support your close associate for a specific reason. And this verse confirms a ruling mentioned in 875, which ended the previous ruling that allowed inheritance between Muslims from Mecca and Muslims from Medina. I'm not even going to touch this topic. I don't understand it. Now, only relatives can inherit from one another, whereas non-heirs can receive a share through bequest. The whole inheritance thing confuses me. I don't understand it. كان ذلك في الكتاب مسطورا. And this was decreed in the record. So if you look at footnote number 2, it says footnote 2775. Here's 2775. For there is nothing hidden in the heavens or the earth without it being written in a perfect record, kitabun mubin. Then you click it, and then it's now talking about the preserved tablet, which God has written the destiny of. It's a crazy footnote that drove us to a different place. I don't understand what we're talking about, because it said the book, the perfect decree. But the book is just how the humans should be, I believe. Anyway. وإذ أخذنا من النبيين ميثاقهم ومنك ومن نوح وإبراهيم وموسى وعيسى ابن مريم وأخذنا منهم ميثاقا غليظا. And when we took from the prophets their covenant, from you, the Prophet Muhammad, and from Noah and Abraham and Moses and Jesus, the son of Mary, and we took from them a covenant that is strong. So here it's like unifying between all the prophets. ليسأل الصادقين عن صدقهم وأعد للكافرين عذابا أليما. So that he may ask the truthful about their truth, the people who are truthful about their truth, and he is prepared for the disbelievers a punishment that is painful, severe punishment. O ye those, يا أيها الذين آمنوا اذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ جاءتكم جنود فأرسلنا عليهم ريحا وجنودا لم تروها وكان الله بما تعملون بصيرا. O ye of those who believe, remember the favor of God upon you when it came to you the hosts, the armies, when you were outnumbered 3 to 10. We sent upon them a wind and armies that you did not see. And God was all seeing about, God was of what you were doing all seeing. So this was we've talked about the war, the Battle of the Trench, the Enemy Alliance. We talked about the wars in chapter 2. I highly recommend you go back to watch them because I'm not going to be able to cover it in this time. And we believe it to be the angels that were aiding them, but it's just forces that you couldn't see. There's a lot more things than just angels also at God's disposal, but I would imagine angels are the primary, but I don't know. I do not know is the answer. But just remember when God sent forces to help you. Remember his favor upon you. إذ جاءوكم من فوقكم ومن أسفل منكم وإذ زاغت الأبصار وبلغت القلوب الحناجر وتظنون بالله الظنون. Remember when they came to you from above and from below you, and when your eyes grew wild and your hearts reached your throats, and you assumed about God assumptions. So something here, it says, when they came from you from the east and west, like above and below you, they came from you every direction. Oh, the east and the west is how they've translated it. The actual statement is above you and below you, which is kind of interesting. That's what it feels like, you to be engulfed by the enemy. And you had entertaining conflicting thoughts about God. Here they're saying the believers were reassured, while the doubts of the hypocrites grew fierce. Wrong. This is talking to the believers. O ye those who believe. Very specifically, like it continues talking about those who believe. We're not talking about the hypocrites all of a sudden. We're talking about those who believed, and even those who believed when they were in the heat of battle, being surrounded by everything, all their doubts creep through. They're freaked out. They scream. They're like, what is going to happen? What's going to happen? And then it will talk about the hypocrites in a second. But I think this is talking about the fear that even the believers, listen, believe all you want. When you have a dagger in your throat, you won't get scared. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that you are a hypocrite. But there are hypocrites, and we are going to talk about them. هنالك ابتلي المؤمنون وزلزلوا زلزالا شديدا. There, the believers were tested, were tried. Again, we're talking about the believers. Were put to the test, were tested. And they were shaken a shake that was severe. Very clearly, we're talking about this. The believers. And now we're talking about the hypocrites. وإذ يقول المنافقون والذين في قلوبهم مرض ما وعدنا الله ورسوله إلا غرورا. And when the hypocrites say, those who have in their hearts disease or sickness, what have we been promised by God and his messenger except delusion? We've been promised, Allah and his messenger have promised us nothing but delusion. Yeah. وإذ قالت طائفة منهم يا أهل يثرب لا مقام لكم فارجعوا ويستأذن فريق منهم النبي ويقولون إن بيوتنا عورة وما هي بعورة إن يريدون إلا فرارا. And it said when at that time when a party of them said, "O people of Yathrib," Yathrib is a location. There is no stand for you. There's no place for you to stand. So return. You can't. This isn't firm. You can't survive. You're not going to be able to survive this. And a group of them asked for permission from the Prophet. They're saying that our houses are exposed and vulnerable, but they were not exposed and vulnerable. They were not at any risk. They just wanted to flee, to run away. And this is where the hypocrisy comes. You say you believe, but you don't really believe. Because if you really believe that God's by your side, then you wouldn't be so afraid. ولو دخلت عليهم من أقطارها ثم سئلوا الفتنة لأتوها وما تلبثوا بها إلا يسيرا. And if it had entered upon them from all sides, and if their city had been sacked from all sides, then they had been asked to abandon faith. Then they would have been asked the test. If their faith was tested after the city was destroyed, then they certainly would have been tested. They would have failed the test, and they would have not hesitated with it except a little. If their city had been sacked from all sides and they had been tested, they would have failed the test without any hesitation, or little hesitation. إلا يسيرا. ولقد كانوا عاهدوا الله من قبل لا يولون الأدبار وكان عهد الله مسؤولا. And they had certainly promised God from before that they will not turn their backs, and the promise of God will be answered for. The pledge to God must be answered for. Oopsie. Astaghfirullah al-Azim. قل لن ينفعكم الفرار إن فررتم من الموت أو القتل وإذا لا تمتعون إلا قليلا. He said, it will not benefit you fleeing. If you were to flee from death or killing, then you would have only been allowed to enjoy except for a little while. And this is kind of the main focus and the main concept. God owns everything. Running away from battle isn't going to save your life. And here it explains it in more detail. قل من ذا الذي يعصمكم من الله إن أراد بكم سوءا أو أراد بكم رحمة ولا يجدون لهم من دون الله وليا ولا نصيرا. Say, who is the one that can protect you from God if he intends for you any harm, or he intends for you any mercy? God owns everything. If God wants you to suffer, you're going to suffer. Running away ain't going to help. So face your destiny is the lesson. There is a sense of surrender in this statement. Just surrender to your fate. Stop running from it and embrace it, And they will not find for them, besides God, any protector and any helper. All right, that's it for today. A bit of a short episode. Also, because I drank a lot of coffee and I drank a lot of water before Al-Fajr and I need to go. But I thank you all for watching me. I'm very excited to see, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Ma salami. Bye. Here we go. Wait, it might still be going, innit? I didn't stop it. That's what's happening. I see. It's interesting that I don't have to start streaming. I have to stop it. Okay. Well, hi.